The Battle of Britain is about to begin.
We got tanks up there. Let's follow a range on Detroit. I'm doing out right on the target right now. I've got a couple of these right in front of me. I'm going out for it. Right, I got him.
Welcome back to the Lead Pursuit Podcast. Tonight, I have decided to talk about something that's kind of the edge of the genre I play. You all know that I'm an old school nerd. Space 1889, a lot of other games from that era, steampunk into diesel punk, maybe even into some atom punk kind of stuff. But you know what? The problem is the people on my podcast team, they don't appreciate that. I'm stuck with Steve, the man whose mustache says he's a Civil War grognard. Steve, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. And hey, if we're gonna have dragons on the podcast, we could definitely have some steampunk blimps and stuff, right? Come on.
That's true. I guess you were the guy that drug us into Dragon Strike and drug us into a dragon air combat game. So I got to give you some credit. But we are joined tonight by Dan Mazur from Guard Tower Games. Dan, welcome to the podcast, and we're happy to talk about Airships and Empires.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I really appreciate you kind of covering the new game.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things that you as a podcaster, you kind of feel like an idiot. You're like, where have I been and how have I missed the development of this? Because I literally hadn't seen anything until you pitched into the NashCon chat and we're asking about, hey, what's going on at NashCon? And I had this moment of, I know I suck at this job, but how have I totally missed this game being developed? So once again, there was another one that Doug had to put on the list of interviews to do. So thank you for on short notice hopping over to talk about this. So, well, let's talk a little bit about your background. Obviously, I got to tease you. You have got a TLDR designer's journey on there. I mean, oh my God, I stopped counting after like the fifth page of scrolling, and I made the mistake of trying to read on my mobile. So I'm on my phone swiping,
reading it. Period.
No, it's a great background. So I enjoy it. But it was one of those moments where I seriously started on my phone and I said, "This is not going to work," and put my phone down and opened my laptop to get the background. So give us a little bit about yourself and how you got here.
Yeah, sure. And I apologize for the length of that. It's just the editor kept on. He's the one that interviewed me, and he was just asking these really bizarre questions. I'm like, what does this have to do with anything?
Why are you asking?
He assembled it all. And I'm like, holy crap! Wow,
it looks like it flows together.
Yeah, it seems like it all comes together. But my background is let's see. So I've had a varied background in my career. I've gone everything from a canoe guy to a high school teacher, a stint in the Army, and then got into the executive world with data and analytics. And now I'm a retired old man. And I
so you have time.
Yeah, so now I have time to do what I really want, which is kind of finishing up this Airships and Empires game that I've been working on it's been a passion project for quite a long time.
Right. Well, I think there's a lot of designers out there who feel rushed to bring things to market, feel rushed to complete products. Obviously, on your designer's journey, you talk about something that you should have brought to market or maybe should have kept under wraps. But we all go through that fine balance of, is this something that we're afraid is going to get out on the market, or is this something that we just want to keep building for years and years until it's finally ready? And obviously, Steve teases me all the time about that with Merged, because I think I would always throw that into a file folder on our shared drive that is mechanics in search of a game. I don't know what the game is. I don't know what we're going to do, but hey, here's a cool game mechanic. So I could appreciate having years and years of development before you push something out. Well, let's talk a little bit about your gaming background, because obviously you've talked about you played D&D, you played war games. If you had to pin it down on best or worst game you've ever played, what would you say? Not necessarily even the most influential, but something that really stuck with you where you're like, that game got it right, or that is going in the recycle bin. I am never playing it again.
So I really. I'll talk about like topics of games, right? So you got the board games, you got the Euro games, you got all these different types of games out there. And I think I have been gravitating for probably, decades to the miniature genre, right? So it was genre. So I think I was originally introduced to miniatures with Napoleonics.
Okay, we're throwing him off the podcast. He's done.
Well, I got away from it pretty quickly.
See, okay, you are a normal person then. Excellent. Okay, you may stay.
But I always liked miniatures of every types, and I think one of my favorite games was what sucked me in first was the models that they actually produced. So 20th Century Imports, Hobby Japan, came out with these kind of like pre-Battletech mechs, right? So these armored fighting suits and all these crazy vehicles and things like that. And they were full scale. They were models. I mean, they were like, you buy a 1/35th scale GTO or something like that. It was in the model section of the hobby shops. And these models are so cool. And then the game came out that matched the models, right? So they didn't have miniatures for the game, but it was still a cardboard and chit type game.
You're dating yourself because my BattleTech sets over there are all cardboard standees.
Yeah. Well, these are the traditional, like 1/2-inch square chits that were on the table you punch out. But SF3D was and has been my favorite for decades. It was a hard game to learn because it was all in Japanese. So luckily I had some Japanese friends that were able to translate it for me, and we got the game going pretty well. That was one of my favorites, and I think it's just because of the miniatures that it has, the mechanics of it was simple mechanics, right? Not like really complex where you're looking up rules for 20 minutes to figure out what happens. So that was one of my favorite games. One of my, I don't have a least favorite game, to be honest with you, but and I'm going to go back to some other miniature games for a second. Chopper Strike.
Yes.
Remember the old Chopper Strike?
There's a couple of those that keep coming up as like flea market sales every time we go to these conventions. And I'm like, am I actually going to buy that game from the 1970s with all this other stuff? And
but moving the Hueys and the Jeeps on the table that always caught
like
me out.
Jeeps down here and Hueys and Cobras or whatever was up on the plexiglass or the plastic piece.
So, but I like the miniatures, but some of the games I just really don't like is the things that require way too much math, right? I mean, I'm a data and analytics guy, but man, I want to play a game. I don't want to be pulling out a calculator and looking up in spreadsheets and everything like that on resource management. So resource management games, if you got a simple one, I'm cool with it, but like Le Havre or Power Grid or those things just give me a headache, and they're so long, and you just get exhausted by the time you're playing it. You don't feel like you've had fun. You feel like you've been through a marathon.
Well, that's how I feel with most resource management games that I've come across, and I think that's people laugh whenever I talk about DVG games and the Leader series, because they are at their core just resource management games. They have this thin veneer of aviation over the top, but that thin veneer can keep me engaged enough to actually play the game for a while, because at its core there isn't as much fun interaction. There's just a lot of painful. How many points am I spending here? How many things am I doing there? And I think it takes a much more fun narrative to bring you through that kind of game, because some of those resource management and math heavy games, you go, I'm not enjoying this.
Yeah, exactly. And the rule, and one of the other big turnoff games for me, love it, hate it, was Starfleet Battles back in the day. Right.
I figured that after reading the rules.
So you've got like volumes and volumes of rules from the old Starfleet Battles games, but it was a cool game, right? They had cool miniatures.
Don't make fun of my sacred cow. It also is on the shelf right next to BattleTech over there.
It was just a very hard game to learn. And when you play with people, it's like half the people had half the rules, and the other half had the other half of the rules because there were so many rules. So, but it was a cool game, but it was too much.
Yeah. Well, so thinking about that as a stepping off point, your game, Airships and Empires, is definitely set steampunk era. It's very nautical in the way it thinks. I can see both the influence and the hatred of Starfleet battles in its, energy and reaction management and systems like that. So, Dave over at Just Want to Play Games didn't really get into this. How did you, over time, you talked about you built an energy and asset management system that was kind of in search of a game. How did you decide that was going to be Airships and Empires, as you'd kind of alluded to in your designer?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I think it originally started, again, decades ago, to try to fix Starfleet battles. Some of the mechanics in Starfleet battles we just did not like. So the three-dimensional combat system that I originally formed was for Starfleet battles. But then those rules kind of went on the back shelf of my brain for a long time. And then some other mechanics start coming in, and, you start doing, that would be cool to have in this game, it'd be cool to have in this game. And there was a pirate game, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. It was like a pirate skirmish game. It was a pirate game, but there was no ships. It was just miniatures. I can't remember the name, but I should run the other room and grab it, what it was. But that clicked with me. It's like, I kind of like the way they're doing their mechanics there. And so I start thinking about my old rules. I start thinking of some other more skirmish game rules. And I have a love for the Victorian era, right? So my thesis when I was in college was on the Corn Law of 1848. So really exciting stuff, right? But I really love
I think over and Google this right now. I have no idea what he's talking about. Excellent. Awesome.
So it's just a really cool era. You have the politics involved. You have the cultural upheaval involved. You have the discoveries involved. You have all the industrialization, everything like that. I'm like, man, this is ripe for both an air. It's right for the airship game, right? But because there's so much you can do for it, right? There's so many scenarios you can put in. There's so many campaigns that you could pull in, and of course you got these really crazy, cool machines, right? The steampunk type of machines. So I think that just the steampunk era, we're kind of based in 1894. That was the line in the sand from a political standpoint, from a technology standpoint. That's the year my grandfather was born. So it's like, okay, it's an easier to remember. I'm locking in at 1894, but there's a lot of cool stuff that was going on politically during that time, the geopolitics of it, and just having that background of the story to kind of bring it into the game just makes it that much more fun, in my opinion.
Well, since you obviously know more about the Victorian era than I do, I will say that people laugh at me there are certain gaps in my history, that there are things that I absolutely love to play and to do historical gaming around. And there's periods I'm like, people play that? Doesn't sound interesting to me. Now, what's funny is I've always enjoyed Victorian science fiction and Victorian science fantasy kind of stuff. But the rest of it has never, ever interested me. And so I've always been a Space 1889 guy, or some of the other systems that are out there. But most of those that became very conventional, dystopian wars and some of those, they just didn't click with me. I mean, the look of it clicked, but the lore and the rules and everything, I was just like, whatever. It's pre-World War I in the air. Were there any of those, though, for you? Were there any strong influences in the steampunk or in the naval genre that you said, wow, that game clicks. I want to take that piece and make it better, or build upon what's already been done?
Space 1889 I played that years ago. I don't remember the rules to that one. I just remember I played it.
Neither do I, but it was fun.
There's probably some buried rules in my brain for that one. So I don't want to throw that one out. But as far as air combat games go, I've played several of the DVG type games. There was an old, I keep going back to the 1980s. I don't know why I liked the games back then. Maybe because I just forgot how bad they were. I don't know. Where there was,
terrible, but there's so much nostalgia. I mean, I've got the horrible ones back there, like Air War and
yeah, there was one
those.
called. It was just a head-to-head fighter game, like MiGs and Tomcats. I think it was called Tomcat. I don't remember exactly the name, but I remember playing that game to death, and some of the banking and things like that. And it was a very basic, inexpensive game. But again, I liked it because when you play a game, I don't want to be dedicating an entire day to play a game. Right? I'll play 5 games for a day, but not necessarily the same game, the same scenario all day long.
Right.
So I like the simple games. I like the simple rules, the fun rules, trying to elevate the concept of Airship and Empires to just a little bit more than a beer and pretzels game.
Right.
But just, again, taking out the math, taking out too much of the calculations, like, there's no G's. If you're doing a bank, there's no G's in airships, right? So the biggest rule that we have on airships is, like, if you got a forward momentum, you got to pause for one phase, and you got to then before you go backwards. That's about that's about as far as you go.
That's as much inertia and everything as in there. Well, I laugh because I obviously have Birds of Prey back there, which might as well be the Starfleet battles of air combat. And I've always put out the challenge, and I'll put it out again tonight. If anyone wants to teach me that game, I'd love to learn it. I will devote an entire day to learning it. I don't have a weekend to go to Birds of Prey boot camp out in Arizona, which I probably should do to learn how to play that game. But I think there's a lot of people, at least from our generation, that we played much crunchier games, and we've been there and we've done that, and it's just not where we are. We don't want to relearn a system, and I think a lot of us are becoming designers. And so what we're doing is we're getting back to the point of, I want to play in these genres or in these kind of rules sets without this wall of crunch that hits us in 40 pages of rule books and SSDs where I'm marking off stuff.
Right.
So
Absolutely. And I wanted to have some of the options in this game too, where, some of the conventions, I'll teach people the rules. You'll know the rules in 10 or 15 minutes tops, right? They're not complicated rules, but some of the rules, if you want to use them, like you could design, some of the funnest part of the games is designing your own airship, right? You start with the hull, the size of the hull, and you fill it up, and you put armor on it, you put weapons in it, you put, the lift, the celium mechanic that we have in this thing, and you design your own. And many of our play testers have been given the airship construction rules. And they will spend hours and hours and hours, and they'll come to the next game and they've got 20 different airships, saying, "Oh, which one I want to play?" Because they're having so much fun just designing the airships, and then they want to go head to head with somebody, right? Those types of mechanics seem to be really fun. It's like make it as easy as you want, or get as involved as you want, and hopefully people are getting involved with it.
Well, I think we've seen that. I mean, when I grew up playing BattleTech, the most fun part of it was to have custom mechs and do those things. My buddy Pat, with his Star Force Commander game, there's a spreadsheet much like yours that you can build your ships. That it makes it interesting. Steve, I know you were.
I was gonna say Gaslands is like that. I feel like that's why everybody really bought into Gaslands, right? Because they're just
how much time did I spend playing Car Wars, designing cars just to get the optimum car to go in there?
Absolutely.
Which is funny because I was listening to Matt Colville talk about game systems that allow you to do something when you're not playing the game. And he was talking about that so many role-playing games and even board games, there's nothing to do between events. But he said, but the secret of games like Magic, where you're working on rebuilding your deck, and even with some of the newer collectible card games, you can actually play against yourself solo and test your deck, or Warhammer, where you're list building and you can math hammer your way into what you're going to take into the next game. I think that's a key thing for people to do. And, the guys on the podcast tease me because I am the least list building guy of anyone. I generally hate list building games. They love bolt action. Blood Red Skies maxes me out because I have to pick 6 airplanes and 6 pilots, and that's enough pain for me. But there's a point to saying that there's a lot of people that want something to do in between gaming sessions, and having a ship construction and a vehicle construction kit certainly will help you there. Yeah,
that is an important thing, right? And I've never heard it relayed in that context before, right? But if you think about like me and Brett, right, we literally play 1 or 2 games of bolt action
a year this year.
a year.
Yeah.
Right? A whole year. But the whole time we're texting back and forth about, oh, I'm going to put this little trick in my list, or I got this new, this new figure or whatever. Right. So that's a really interesting thing to hear it put in that respect, that people want to do things with the game, interact with the game system, even when they're not actually maybe playing a scenario. Right. That's a really neat designer's note.
And solo games have really taken off too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I would make this game into a solo game, but I'm sure it can be done. I just haven't put the energy into it because I'm not a solo game player. But a couple of people have talked to me saying, how do we make this into a solo game? Because, it's a different culture nowadays, right?
Right.
We don't have the big gang of people getting together every Saturday and, drinking beer and just kind of hanging out and playing games. It doesn't happen anymore, or not as often.
Well, not as often, and quite frankly, I was never a solo gamer either, and then started playing DVG games, designed a title, developed a title with them, and kind of moved into that world. The solo gaming world is really, I guess, it's a broad community, because it is people that literally want no interaction and they want to play their game and they want to get the best score possible, even though it's a solo game, so you could cheat. And then there's other people that are very cooperative about solo games. They enjoy solo games. They're like, oh, I like this solo game. Is there a way we can make it so my buddy can play the solo game and we can work a solo game together? And I'm like, sounds like a regular board game by this point. But I understand what they're trying to do. They like the laser focus on them for the solo game, but they want to do that laser focus with their buddies and be able to say, okay, we're all going to work together and see who's going to, kill the most targets, do whatever, and not necessarily directly compete, but there's a little bit of competitive, piece in there. So
absolutely, yeah.
I think gaming,
a scenario that we're developing actually for the Airships game. It's kind of solo. I guess it is. It's a solo scenario. But it's pretty short, and it's almost like a choose your own adventure. And then this happens, and then you go to combat with this other airship,
Yeah.
It's just different style, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And quite honestly, there are so many different styles of board games, miniatures games, ways people want to play. I've kind of told people, when they ask either about Merged or any one of our other projects, they're like, where does it fit? I'm like, I don't know, man. I just hope somebody likes it, because every time someone tries to pin it down to something, I feel like I'm breaking some sacred rules. I mean, Steve saw it when we were laying out the knee boards for the aircraft and putting tracking chits and things that were very Euro style or contemporary style board game, that all of the grogs were like, I've got a pen. Why don't I do that? I'm like, because I don't like that. I like tactile things. I don't want an SSD record sheet. I want to move little blocks around. But yeah, there's a wide diversity in how people want to interact with the game, much less the actual mechanics of it.
Right. And actually, I'm several iterations ago of this game, it kind of was a resource game. We had all these cards and everything like that, where people were allocating these cards during the game. And it was one of the conventions. We had probably half dozen people sitting at the table, and they're spread of cards out as they're flying these airships, and they're flipping these cards. I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. It's like, that was the last game I ever played with the cards. I'm like, it's because it's become a Euro game at this point with airships. It's like, I don't want to do that anymore.
It's so funny because those mechanics get pulled all over different places, because there's a lot of card interaction in Blood Red Skies, a World War II and Korea aerial war game, but there can even be another level of a card versus card theater interaction. And so, yeah, it's fascinating how those things have cross-pollinated into some games, and in some it works great, and some of them it's very contrived. So right. Yeah, that's something a designer always has to kind of balance what's a contemporary mechanic versus what makes the game feel authentic. So speaking of authentic, we talked about this beforehand. There's a lot of different kinds of steampunk. You got to kind of anchor how steampunk is your steampunk in Airships and Empires. What will people recognize? You talked a little bit about Celium. So give us a little bit of the background on that lore and how this steampunk evolves a little differently than others.
Yeah. So this is, I think Airships and Empires, it's a steampunk light. And the light part of it is no pun intended, but it's the celium concept, right? So it's
right.
lighter than hydrogen, lighter than helium. This is what's really giving these airships, these armored airships lift, right? And as part of the lore, celium has basically changed society. So 50 years earlier, the discovery of celium and how it started integrating and changing the industry across the world, across Europe, mostly in the United States. And celium has basically given us the airships, right? So that's the one steampunk. But then we got these crazy infernal machines. So we've got a couple of dozen infernal machines that are.
I saw that in there, and I had to laugh. That was pretty cool. But go ahead. Sorry.
So some of them are I'll say standard weaponry, a little bit of sci-fi,
Tesla weaponry, things that we're used to,
like a rail gun or a Tesla cannon or something like that. You could kind of get your arms around that. And then we have some other crazier ones that like a displacer and some other
storm cannon. That was a funny one. That's in the basic free to download game. I laughed about that. So
there's some crazy ones that are in there, but it's not steampunky where steampunk is kind of overwhelming the game, right?
Right.
It's just kind of given us a different type of airship combat and some funky weapons.
Yep.
But again, I think that the richness of it as well, because we could always introduce more, right? The discoveries, all the archaeological work that's going on during this time period in real life is going to be exposing some other possible infernal machines that may have existed that people didn't know. So we'll have some releases of those additional weaponry, additional factions that are coming out as well. So I really like to get the flavor of the sci-fi-ish, Victorian sci-fi. I guess that's a better way of saying it. It's Victorian sci-fi rather than true steampunk.
That's a weird delineation, but it kind of is. It's I guess not being a super into steampunk kind of person. I mean, I have a hard time sometimes separating where the two are. Where is it Jules Verne and it's somewhat based in the real world yet sci-fi, or is it, like you say, super steampunk that is so way out there, it's almost magic in a lot of ways.
Right. Now, this is not even close. This is closer to the Jules Verne style stuff. And again, I love the period. Maybe I'm the only person on the planet that loves this period so much, but I think that
I almost bought 2 Space 1889 lore books while I was on Wayne's Books the other day. I go there every morning and see what's new, what some poor grognard has sold off. And I'm like, ooh, I remember those from the 80s, but I didn't buy it.
There's some cool stuff but with the factions, and then again, immersing yourself into real world politics of the time, right? You got the rise of the Ottoman Empire, right? You've got China and Japan are starting to raise up and their powers and their just a constant power struggle but basically all the things that led to World War I is basically where this game is set. Now picture that build up with everybody flying these crazy airships and these crazy machines leading up to World War I.
Yeah, well, so that's where I want to really anchor on a little bit with the lore and the factions and things you've built, because other games like Dystopian Wars is clearly pre-World War I with airships and everything. It is written of that era, and this strikes me as obviously well prior, as you said, 1894, anchored in that time frame, but really anchored in the last gasp of royalty in Europe.
That's right.
At least looking at your factions, because you've got Austrian Empire, British Empire, French Republic, Kingdom of Prussia, the Pirate Syndicate, and the Russian Empire. So you've got one republic and a pirate syndicate, and the rest are all empires.
Right.
So it's that last gasp of empire, and I think it's at least interesting to me when I went through the ships and went out to the website, looked at the different designs, which by the way look amazing, and I was jealous automatically. It's like not buying any more models, but there's definitely a difference between what a lot of people have played previously, which is more World War I-esque. And this is really taking it back to that last gasp of empire, things that they would recognize from Zulu and things like that.
Right.
In that time period. So
yeah, it's definitely industrialization, but it is not the heavy dreadnoughts, the
right.
ocean dreadnoughts.
Although there are some big airships in this game.
Yeah, there are.
I got to say, I did laugh as I went through and saw some of the smaller, lighter ones, and then looked at some of the larger ships and things. And obviously, I haven't seen the stats for it. I've just seen what's on the website. But that looks like a lot of fun. It looks like there's a tactical depth there, even though you're only showing 4 classes of basic styles of ships on the website. There's at least a role for each of them that doesn't seem to make it too cookie cutter. So how was that to build into the game to make it where it didn't just feel, and I always pick on Starfleet Battles for this, where the ships, the heavy cruiser is where everything is, and everything else is a derivative of it. Your battleship is just a heavy cruiser with more engines and more weapons, and everyone else is somewhere below that.
Yeah, I think it's so we have the mechanics of the game is the foundation of it is the hull of the ship, right? And
right.
And all the airships have, the bigger the hull, the more the hull weighs. It's a bigger infrastructure, right? So when the airships are built, either as they come out of the game, because you get 24 airships out of the box, you get one airship per class per faction. Right. There's some other, I think we have 3 or 4 different merchant ships as well that you can throw in there. But of course, as we mentioned, that people can design their own airship. So I'm going to have a 50-point airship or a 100-point airship, whatever that is. And the 3 concepts that we're always really balancing in the game design is the weight, the lift, and the propulsion, right? So how much can you actually lift? That's going to determine how much celium you actually have in this thing. And of course, the hull can only carry so much anyway, regardless of how much celium you have. There's a max weight. There's some celium component as far as the lift, and then the engine's obviously going to give you movement across the table, and your armor and weapons. That's the other weight that's in there. So everything's factored in there. So the smaller ships, like the corvettes, which are typically more like a 40-point ship, fast, nimble, traditionally. But depending on how you want to play, if you want to design your own corvette, boy, you can have a corvette that's like a tank, right? And
right.
We've had so many designers go through these airships to try to break stuff. And I think, and there's other aspects of the game too, like there's ramming and boarding and taking over.
I saw ramming. I had a moment because one of the guys in my gaming group, Richard, plays orcs in just about every game he plays, and finds some excuse to run his aircraft or something else into other people. And I'm like, well, I'm not playing this game with Richard because that's going to be his favorite rule. He's literally going to ram every single thing I do. I'm like, nope, this game is not a game to play with Richard.
Yeah, so it's a fun mechanic. It's a different aspect of the game because when you actually board somebody else's ship, you're fighting turn to turn to take over spaces on their ship. So It's not just like, hey, you do have a couple of rolls and boom, you take over their ship. No, it's like there's fighting back and forth on the boarding action. So they can actually start, taking over a third or a quarter or half your ship, and all of a sudden the other airship starts repelling them with some good dice rolls or maybe assistance from another airship, and lo and behold, you can actually basically reverse the boarding action, right?
Right.
So there's just fun things like that in the game too. So it's just not a head-to-head game, but airship design. Going back to that really quickly, is the heavier ships. Obviously, they're going to be slower. They're not going to be able to gain as much altitude. The lighter ships, we have altitude pegs, right? So that you could change your altitude depending on how much you're able to. It's all calculated out. And when I say calculated, it's calculated on we basically have 2 charts to play the game. That's it. And as you start taking damage, you start losing celium, well, your altitude level starts dropping, or, you start getting your engines knocked out, your movement starts slowing, things like that, happen throughout the game, which makes it, a little bit more dynamic, and people are using different types of airships for basically a whole variety of things. You want the fast cutters, you want to sit in the background and just pound people, which is, I think that's might be jumping topics on this one a little bit. But that was one of the most interesting things, I think, with all the play testers, is the different types of players in the game that I did not really weigh, especially at conventions where you don't really know the players, because typically you have a gang of friends and you kind of play the same. You just kind of used to each other. You play the same, but there's sometimes you'll have a very different crowd. Half the table will be those types of people that just sit back and say, "Well, I'll wait till find out what they're going to do," and they're just very cautious, very cautious, very cautious. And the other side is very aggressive. So it turns the tables on the games very quickly. Yeah. Heaven forbid you have two cautious players that are just sitting there, just eyeballing each other the entire game.
I've had that one. Steve saw that happen with Merged, where you're like, guys, this is a fast play game. This is not supposed to take this long.
It's meant to blow up stuff,
Exactly. Yeah. Well, so I'm going to kind of jump here. I wanted to talk some mechanics, but let's talk about the play testing, because I think that's an important point to anchor on, is that this is not something that has just been grown in your homegrown group and anchored in the same way you always play games and the same mechanics that you're used to. You really have tried to widen the audience. Tell us a little bit about the playtest experience that you've had.
Sure. So playtesting started out just small core group of friends, a couple of the local game shops, and then I started hitting the convention circuit. And it's just not as, hey, I'm selling this game. I'm running this indie game.
Yeah.
Right. So I usually, I'll just say Origins Game Fair was the last big one I went to this past June. I don't know. I probably ran maybe 5 sessions a day. So it was probably 16 or 20 sessions, gaming sessions for the entire weekend. I don't get play a lot of games, but it's kind of play testing through these things. Now the rules have been baked since then, but doing that over the past 10 or 12 years, we've had hundreds of players go through this and gotten their feedback, and the rules get tweaked and things like that. So I think that the convention play has made a huge difference in how the mechanics of the game worked, stuff that we put in, and a lot of stuff that we pulled out.
Right.
Because you just get a whole variety of people to give that feedback on. And sometimes, I think all feedback is good, at least to a point, because I always want to hear what the other people have to say on the feedback. And sometimes it was, that weapon was too strong. I don't like this, blah, 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 blah. And it's because it got blown up. But when you really talk about it, it's like, well, you kind of did a stupid move, and that's why you died.
It never happens.
So you got to filter that kind of feedback out. But we got some great feedback from the players. It's a different game than when I started. It's completely different.
Right. Well, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. And it was funny for me this last Historicon to sit down and to go through playtesting, really a pre-alpha version of Merged. And I guess people are used to game designers that love their game and their game's finished. And it was unique to me to say, no, guys, if you don't like something, I'm happy to change that. There's very few sacred cows in this rule system. And I've told you what those are. And it's not even the rules, it's the concept. But I think there's a lot of game designers out there that they have a finished product in mind before they go through playtesting. And like you say, at a convention, you'll run across people that won't just break your game. They'll have a totally different play style, yet they're still playing your game. So you have to understand how to incorporate that in.
Yeah. And my biggest thing about these games are, you don't want to make enemies across the table with making the rules so complex, or, people arguing to the rules lawyers. You want to have fun. You want to have fun. You want to laugh. You want to make fun of people. You want them to make fun of you. I have just as much fun. I have just as much fun losing games most of the time, because I lose most of the games I play than winning. It's not about winning or losing on these games. It's just the chaos. You mentioned Gaslands and Car Wars and stuff like that. It's like, oh my God, if both dying in a ball of flames and everybody hooting across the table. That's fun.
That was Car Wars. And I've never played Gaslands, which is surprising. As much as I loved Car Wars, I've never played Gaslands. I know Steve and Brett on the team have. But yeah, that was half the fun of Car Wars was that everybody died. Everybody, maybe there was one last person standing.
People are spraying the chrome and you die gloriously.
But that's all right. Everyone had a good time. Well, let's hop over to the mechanics. I don't want to miss a chance to talk about that. I do want to at least leave people with some information about how the game plays and some of the things that you think you over all these years have really honed down on and make it distinct and unique. Obviously, the first one that hits you going through the sample rules online, the quick play start play, is the command point mechanic and how you use that for both Starfleet battle style energy allocation, but also for reactions and for putting a budget of reactive command points away to be able to do things later in the turn.
Sure. Yeah. So the command point concept is every player has a base number of command points. You roll a die, a 6-sided die, and you add that to your base number, which is typically 10. So you get a certain pool of command points to allocate. This is at the very beginning of every round. So all the players roll at the same time. Everybody allocates their points relatively secretly on a little table. And you allocate your command points to initiative, to a movement, to attacks, to repairs, and also to reaction. So you have those 5 categories you're assigning things. Now, sometimes I just say I have 13 command points to start. I can't put everything in 13 points into movement because my airship will probably have a maximum movement, right? So maybe I have a movement of 5 or 6, whatever I have the design for. So if I might want to put 6 there, I could put a couple in repairs because I'm already damaged, and maybe the rest in attacks. And so that's the concept. And then when everybody is done allocating, then we say, okay, who's first? Who won initiative? So if you really wanted to go first, you're going to be dumping points into initiative to make sure you or your fleet go first. One of the concepts we have is you're playing multiple players. You have a command ship that runs your fleet, and they get extra command points, but they're the only one. They're the only airship, the only captain that has to allocate towards initiative, and everybody else on your fleet inherits that.
I saw that, and I liked that because that way you're not in a sense wasting points trying to build a whole initiative piece. It's okay. That command ship drives my overall initiative, and then the whole side is going to act anyway. It's going to be that entire side.
Order. And that's the other thing too. Is I think that the command points and usage of that is really, I really wanted to give the players agency on how they're running their turn, and I kind of got tired of the typical type of games where you move, you shoot, you do this, you do this. Next turn, you move, you shoot, you do this, and you do that. And it's like just this repetition. It's like the sequence of events.
Right.
In this game, you can spend your points in any order, in any way you want. 2 points here. I'm going to move a couple spaces. I'm going to fire 3 of my weapons. I'm going to repair. I'm going to move again. I'm going to change altitude. I'm going to fire these other weapons over here. So you can constantly rotate those things. And then when you start having a fleet, the wild card in this too is if your command ship has initiative, well, you can have any one of the airships go in any order they want. So that this one may have gone last turn, they could go first this turn. So across the table, you really don't know who's going to be moving first or who's attacking first. So it's a very dynamic play. And I think that the command point concept has really worked out. It's been a fun aspect of the game for people because they don't. Again, it's a wild card. Every round's a wild card, and you have a base, so you're not, even if you're a person that always rolls ones.
You're at least getting 10 to start with.
That's right. You're still able to do quite a bit. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think, and we've talked about it a lot on the podcast. There is an element that people like bidding or push their luck kind of games where they're forced to decide how offensive or defensive or where am I going to weight this turn's actions without plotting a ton of energy allocation and things like that, and just being able to put, in this case, command points towards offensive firepower, not much towards movement, maybe some to repair, and then obviously the reaction pool. So let's talk a little bit about how the reaction pool for command points there works.
Yeah, that's a fun one. So I'm going to keep the Pirate Syndicate off because the Pirates do their command their reactions a little bit differently. But in most games, you'll have some kind of reaction that you can do. Not always. A lot of times you will. So in Airships and Empires, what we do is there's certain triggers to being able to react.
Right.
A trigger can be, hey, an airship moves the first time within 12 spaces. Another one can be, hey, you didn't have line of sight of that airship last turn, and now it emerges from the cloud. If you have allocated reaction points into your pool during the allocation phase, let's just say that, Doug, it's your turn and you're moving your airship and you come around a mountain pass and I didn't see you last turn. Well, I could say, okay, I'm reacting, and it's an out of sequence turn. So you pause your turn and I spend all my reaction points to do whatever I want. Right. And that could be, I'm going to fire, if I have 3 reaction points there, I could fire 3 weapons. If I have movement left, I could take my movement. Those 3 reactions could be spent for movement or any combination there. I'm going to hurry up and repair stuff before you blow the hell out of me, whatever those things are. But the other thing that can happen is it can have a cascade effect as well. So even though I'm reacting to you, I might try to flee and I might move a few spaces. Well, all of a sudden now I get into somebody else's zone or somebody else reacts to what I did, and you can have a chain reaction that way. The only thing you can't do is if I'm reacting to you, like firing at you for the first time or something, you can't react to my reaction, right? So it's
right.
So you can't have that back and forth. But
I was worried that I was like, fired at first time. I'm like, well, it's the first time I fired at him. Does he then get to react to me? So darn. So much for that.
So the reaction has been really fun. And now the pirates. And so when you react, if you have a pool of reaction, if any of the other standard factions, the nation factions, if they react, they have to spend all their points. I'm reacting. I got 3 points there. I spend all 3 of my points.
Yep.
The pirates don't have to do that. So the pirates can say, okay, I'm going to react to you, but I'm only going to spend 2 of my 5 points that I put in there.
Right.
And the pirates can also react without any trigger sometimes too. So it's, again, another wild card factor for the pirates. And there's a balance for the pirates because the pirates can't have these massive dreadnought ships, like 100-point ships on the field, unless they have, I think it was a couple 100 points already on the field, then they can field a dreadnought or a flagship.
Well, that's cool. that was the thing that at least I enjoyed about the quick start rulebook is it already went ahead and threw out the special rules, for all of the factions there. So you at least got a feeling of the flavor, and you put all the weapons in there. So really there's nothing keeping you from changing a weapon here, there on those ships and trying different things just to start learning the rules before you either commit in or before you pick up the rules when they become available.
The quick rules, I don't even remember how many pages of the quick start
17. Most of that is describing the other forces.
Yeah. And I think they have, so we have, every faction has a faction trait that they get every turn. And then they also get a strategic command that they can use once per game. So out of all 6 factions, that's probably a few pages right there.
Yeah, it is.
A couple pages of charts, I think, too.
Well, and that's kind of why I laugh, because the actual game rules, I think, are 2 pages. And I'm not kidding. They are. Yeah, it's the core rules are 2 pages, and there's some descriptions when you go on later about how to how the weapons work and how the some of the actual scenario works. But the rules are 2 pages. And obviously it's a subset of the rules, but
that's right.
It gives you what you need for that.
Yeah, it's the rule book that's coming out, and this has been we're supposed to have it done for Origins in June, then it got delayed, and it got delayed again, and it is all because of the art.
Yeah,
the artwork every single time has been delaying us, and we got a couple of new artists, replacement artists, I'll say, and she's a local gal. Mm-hmm. That both of them are local gals, and they've been really good so far. So
awesome.
The book is done. The editor has it, and literally when we get the artwork, it's a swap out of art that's already in there. That's kind of like placeholders.
Right.
So we should have the hardcore, the hard rules, the full rules, I should say, for not for Huracan, but for Fallen. But
see, Steve, you got to go to Fallen.
Yeah,
just for that reason.
Yeah, so we should have them there by Fallen, and we'll also have. I'm praying that we're going to have some at least demo copy rules, like maybe with the old art, right? The informal art. We should have some copies of that for Huracan in a couple of weeks.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll be at Fall, or at least I'll be at Fallen. Maybe, I don't know. I'm already striking drug deals for the month of November to go to some gaming things en route to work, and then I got to figure out how to fit Fallen in as well. And Steve has to figure out how to pawn his kids off on his wife, because that's Fallen is always a kid activity weekend. Steve, are you going to make it this year? Or are you going to?
Well, you know what? I will make it. I'm sure I'll make it at least a day or two, right? Because I have no problem missing work. That one doesn't bother me. It's just as far as the, the kid activities on the weekends, right?
Yeah. So that may be what we do. I may do the same thing, fly up there and then fly out early so I can then, because I have Millennium Con after Veterans Day, and that's the one that for me it conveniently falls on. I buy my ticket to Austin, and the company buys my ticket from Austin to LA. So I'll hopefully get to fly out, do Millennium Con on my way to go do some work, and then at least get a few games in. Specifically because I've been promising Casey that I'm going to go to his hometown convention for as long as he's been on the podcast, but it hasn't worked out. All right, well let's cover one more thing about mechanics. And I know there's a lot we could delve into, and there's a lot we could talk about how the weapons work, how the ranges work, how, the standard and maximum ranges work. I will say the thing that I like is it harkens back to a lot of older games I remember where you have a standard unit of size. It is not an inch. It is not a centimeter. It is whatever you choose to use, such as to match the scale of your game, the scale of your table. So that I definitely like, but the part where I kind of have to scratch my head, is altitudes. How do you make altitude intuitive? How does this game do altitudes in a way that at least you feel satisfies it better than all of our games with extendable antenna stands and things that drive us nuts?
Well, we started. If you look at some of the old pictures on the website, you'll see some of the 2-dimensional artwork. A plug for Chris Reevy. He's out in the UK. He did our cover art. He did a lot of the artwork of the 2-dimensional miniatures. But we used the antennas. Yeah. And I just did not like the antennas.
He's one of us.
They work, but they just don't look good. They
don't. It's a staple of aerial wargaming. So we're pariahs in the aerial wargaming community because we have this line in the sand of no antenna stands on our tables. No, we'll do anything else.
Doug. I was trying to fix my truck the other day, and I couldn't even find an antenna for it because they're all like bought up by Check Your Six players.
Bought by the Check Your Six players who've all taken them. No. Yeah,
the antennas and alligator clips. Just not my style.
I'm good.
Yeah. So in the game when you're designing it, obviously it's when you're done with the design of an airship, or you pull an airship, and I'm just going to pull one up in front of us for those people who are not watching, but I'm going to pull it up. So here's the airship, and then you got the back of it. You'll be able to see it on the
and I can put in the stream and everything. Yeah. I can throw that back in.
But there's, when you design your airship, again, based on your weight, how much celium you have, like celium pods, or think of the old style weather balloons, like the real thin, narrow weather balloons. And you have those celium pods that are in your airship, and that's going to give you your lift, and that determines your altitude, your max altitude. Right. So we have altitudes, everything from 0 to roughly 7.
Okay.
So it's 7 different types of altitude. And usually, obviously, the lighter ships with more celium in it, or hard, like some of the cargo vessels where they have no weapons or no armor or something like that, they can go to a higher elevation. And they're pegs. So we have these elevation pegs that you're literally just plugging into each other.
Yep.
On a nice star base stand, right?
Mm-hmm.
It gives you both the direction and the arc of fire on your base, and your ship is just plugging right into these altitude pegs. Now, the altitude works in the game. It's a strategic aspect of the game, right? Because the weapons themselves that you have in an airship only have so much elevation and declination.
Right.
So they can only raise up certain angles. So if you may be, 2 or 3 elevation levels higher than your opponent, then your weapons might not be able to hit.
We'll put that in the images for the video part of it, but that's a neat part of the final columns on the weapons tables is you get out there and it tells you what that is, and I assume that's just numbers of altitudes up or down.
That's
you can
right.
shoot based on where you are. Yeah, so it's a neat way to constrain a little bit of that firepower and say, yeah, it's a really powerful weapon. However, it only has an altitude delta of 1, so
Exactly.
inclination doesn't shoot that far up.
Right. And a lot of ships will, during your turn for movement, the standard movement is table spaces across table, or changing of facing, or changing elevation levels that consumes your command points in movement. So you're looking down the barrel of a Tesla cannon or a rail gun or something like that. It has a elevation of only 1. Then you want to pop up at least a couple of levels above that so they can't reach you. But then we also have the rule in there too is like distance makes a difference too, right? So if you only have an elevation 1 weapon, but the airship is 3/4 of the way across the table, well, it's over a certain number of spaces for your range, so you can actually get an extra elevation out of it. It's just kind of the natural angle, right? The hypotenuse, you'd be able to hit them with that. So
that's something I'm looking forward to fooling with, because we've talked about it in a lot of games that they can make it super crunchy as you're trying to figure out that vertical element. And I was looking at Gavin's above the clouds rules and how he talks about elevation and those angles. And there's ways it can make it super intuitive, and there's ways you feel like you're doing trigonometry. So
yeah.
I'm hoping you didn't do that. No, it didn't seem that way in the rules.
Minimal math.
Good. My kind of game. Well, okay. So that helps us understand how the altitude works and how weapons arcs, both in the vertical and the horizontal, are working. Is there anything else mechanics wise that you really want to anchor down on and say, people come play this game because of this one mechanic, this thing that I've done that's unique, that really, really sets the game apart?
Yeah, I think that the command point system is a big piece of that. I think that I haven't seen games do it the way that I've designed it in this game, and of course the elevation aspects of it too. It's I have not seen the same type of elevation type rules as well. So throughout the game that we've seen players, and they are regularly changing altitude, right? So in their same turn, it's like they may be going up 3, they may be firing, they may be moving, and then dropping down 2 or 3 elevation levels. And it's just a fun mechanic, especially when people start going in reverse too. Yeah. Because when you start going head to head, usually all your armor is, you have your crewmen just kind of waving out a big hole. So a lot of people are starting to turn their airships around backwards and using that as their front. So
Yep.
I think one of the big mechanics is the command point system, and I really think that the airship design concept is just a fun thing to do. I mean, we have so many people we have contests that we're putting out on Discord for best designs and things like that. So it's just going to be a fun thing to do.
That's awesome. All right, let's talk about the miniatures. So before we wrap things up, we have to talk about the miniatures. You have both, right now you have printed miniatures on your site, STLs to come at a future time, but you've obviously got it for all the factions that are out there. You've got those available. Tell us what the rollout plan for miniatures and the support for that will be.
Yeah, so we have again 1 miniature per class of airship for each faction. So there's a total of 4 for Austrians and 4 for the Russians. So there's a total of 24 airships, having the corvettes, the frigates, the destroyers, and the flagships. And when you buy an airship, when you buy one of the airships, you'll get the airship, you'll get the elevation pegs with it, you'll get the base for it, as well as some extra components, right? So you'll have some extra engines if you want to put engines. If you're the modeler type, you can attach them onto your airship, and some propellers, and some of them have additional wings that you can put on there. Just to kind of make the miniature your own. So we have those basically come in kits, and when you buy a miniature, it comes as the kit, right? They're all solid pieces, right? So if you don't have to put those extra pieces on, but a lot of people do. They're all resin, ABS resin models, and they're available right now. So we've had the models. That was the thing that has been finished for the longest time right now. I think we've been using these models, and they've had a lot of battle damage at all the conventions we've been running. I'm looking at one across the table, and it has like three blades on the propeller and things like that, because people are dropping them on the floor. They need to be repaired before Hurricane, I think, or Fallen for sure. But so we have those airships. We also have in the pipeline right now that needs a little bit of tweaks. We've got 3 different cargo ships. Mm-hmm. They're kind of like unaffiliated, like almost like the Merchants Guild, if you will. We have stands for clouds. They're basically their elevation pegs on a slightly different type of base, because we have wind rules in the game if people want to apply it, and you just the way that the cloud stands are, you basically get some polyfill and put it in this thing that's holding it, and you got clouds across the table. We also have a celium mining platform. So celium, again, is as these Victorian era people are trying to get the celium. Well, they got to mine it from the sky. Right. So that's kind of part of the lore. So we actually have one here. We have these large celium platforms, mining platforms that are quite big. Cool. Yeah. So it's about I don't know how many inches that is. Probably 6 or 7 inches by 6 or 7 inches. And just different aspects of that onto the table. It's just good scenario play. We also have printed. We have a limited run set. So when you buy the game, you get all 24 airships of the art, the 2-dimensional art ship. Those are all in the rules. And again, they're really cool, and they're cardboard. You cut them out, or you copy it and you cut them out and you fold them and you use them on the table. But that artwork we modeled, have 3-dimensional models of all those airships. And they're really cool looking airships. They're not the typical Zeppelin type airships. Yeah. They're very different looking than what we have on the website right now. And we're only doing a limited run of those. We probably won't release those until next year. And I think we're only going to have a run of 500 each. Right. When they're gone, they're gone. I'm trying to think of what other models we have out there. So those are the miniatures that we have for sure right now. We have other factions coming out. We have the Americans coming out. We have the Ottoman Empire coming out. We have the I forgot the name of it. Basically, the Chinese, and I believe we have one other one that I can't remember what other the faction is coming out. So there's a lot of variety in the game, and the scenarios will kind of show that as well. We have the STL files up for sale, but I've been in a mad rush to do the website. So we do give out there's a free STL of the, I believe it's the Prussian Corvette that people can download and print.
I missed that.
Yeah, it's if you go on the
there it is right there.
Yeah, so you can download that and print that. Actually, now that I think of it, I have got to adjust that because I think I don't know if you get the whole kit with it. You should. I think you get the whole kit with that one too. But I'll double check that. I'll check that tonight. Make sure that you do get the full kit. But all the STLs will be available probably over the next couple of weeks for all the airships.
Nice. Well, I think it's interesting that you're doing that because there's so many companies that are still resistant to that. And there's a lot that right now have said, look, we know how the industry is going. Yes, 3D printing is still a little bit of an art. It's not just make a replicator and punch a button, but it certainly helps people build out their forces, keeps them loyal to the game, doesn't put a barrier of entry where you're spending $300 just to field forces for you and your buddy or you and whoever is going to be at the table. And I do like the fact that you've got options. I was laughing looking at all the different flagships and how many different sets of sails and things, because the ships are very unique. They're certainly not just all Zeppelins. I mean, I don't even know how to describe the Russians. They're like conventional ships with sails, but are flying and have guns. So, there's some wild things.
There are some really, and the French are kind of, oceanic.
Whales. I don't know. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're whale
like
ships,
that.
I guess.
And the rules that we have all the airship blueprints, as we call them. The airship blueprints is what people will be playing off of, and it's very different, very fun. And especially even in the game too, with the infernal machines, adding the politics into that too is not all factions get all infernal machines. Right. So there are faction specific types of infernal machines. There's a group of infernal machines that everybody can use. Some that you don't want to really use because they're so just as dangerous to use as.
I still like the storm cannon. That's pretty much my favorite one right now after reading through the rules.
Cool.
So.
Yeah. But we want to throw some stuff in there. Go back to the old Warhammer days when you had when you released the squigs, or the vortex of chaos. It just kind of
the storm cannon reminded me of vortex missiles, and that you would lob a vortex missile in the middle of the table, and who knows where that's going next turn. It might come back at you.
That's where my mind was when I created that one.
Yeah. Well, Steve, so the rule for this, it's awesome. It literally puts a storm out there that does damage to ships within 3 units of it, and it then randomly moves around the table, just damaging whoever it runs into. So
yeah, I'm almost partial to the Tesla, whatever version of Tesla cannon a game has. That's always what since my Red Alert days, I'm always, been
always kind of partial to that.
Right. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Well, so we've been going for a little bit over an hour. The thing that I do want to hammer down on is that, that everything is right there. You're getting ready to start releasing some of this stuff. Obviously you've had some delays, but this is a game that's not going to be a lot longer in development. People should be able to start seeing it come out. What is your current release plan, release timing, for what you think is going to happen post Huracan and this fall?
Yeah, so miniatures will be available within the next couple of weeks. So I would just say safely, end of August, all the miniatures will be there. Quick start rules are there right now. You could download those for free. The artwork, the contract for the artists they're going to be done in, I believe, late October.
Okay.
So that's going to get me time to get it to the editor to replace the artwork. So I'm targeting comfortably. I've been saying that for years now, but comfortably November, because I want to have hardcover books at Fall-In. So we're selling the books. We're selling electronic copies like ebook, paperback, and hardback, and they're all print on demand. So, you order the book, they're going to drop ship them to you, and everybody's happy.
And that's all going to be on your website, right? Or is it also going to be on Wargame Vault or anywhere else? Okay, so it's all going to be on Airships and Empires. Okay, nice.
Right. Yeah, we looked at when we started the game. We, meaning me and my wife, who's tolerated me over the past.
Exactly.
But we looked at the Kickstarter and all these other things. It's like, the game's done. What do I need Kickstarter for now? So it was marketing is hard. So I really appreciate you guys pulling us on this, because it's helpful from just getting the word out of what's going on. It's a huge help. And, it's with the small indie developers, we don't have a budget of $30,000 to do marketing and keeping our fingers crossed that it's going to be a success. You know, I don't think a lot of people have that much cash just kind of sitting around, just praying that their game's going to sell and make them $5,000 if they just spend 30.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So, and it's game development is pretty hard, and the Kickstarter type things are interesting, I'll say. But I think that there's a lot of times where companies just need to do it themselves and have the platform and go to the cons and do the shopping around and just, you just got to pound the pavement if you really want your game to be picked up.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a message that a lot of designers are now saying, because while big companies are even using Kickstarter just because it's there as a marketing and order taking tool, it is no longer what it really was there for, which is crowdfunding, which is really helping those indie gamers. Now it's become co-opted into just a pre-order platform that lends some mass market appeal to whatever shows up on there. So it's unfortunate, but I think you're at least in a good position where you've got, rules that are done. You're just waiting on backfitting art, waiting on finishing some STLs, and then everything can roll out. So where can people find you? So I know obviously airshipsandempires.com.
That's right. Airshipsandempires.com. And we have a Facebook presence out there. So look us up at Airships and Empires on Facebook. And we also have a Discord channel, which just got started up, and we're just starting to roll that out. And we're going to have some additional contests on there, some perks on there for engagement. So as the more people are engaged on the Discord for a variety of things, they actually go up ranks, and they get a rank designation in their profile, and there's perks that come with those ranks as well. Right. So, and those can come from, come to be free fleets to, additional discounts, things like that. So one thing I would say for your listeners too, Doug, is we could put a code out there.
Yeah.
If we want to say, hey, we just give a code. We could just make it up right now, and I could put it into the website, and everybody will get like 15% off by just putting the code in. I think that would be a great thing.
We can do that, and we can drop that so that the listeners all get that and can go out.
Maybe just put lead pursuit as the discount code. And 15% off.
There you go, right on the website. Yeah, it'll make it easy. So obviously Discord. The best way is to contact you via Facebook, website, then get into the Discord, and then be part of the community. Obviously, info@airshipsandempires.com. Easy way to email you guys and to get in contact with you. Steve, any last minute questions? I know you've been pensively thinking about airships up there.
No, I guess airship games always intrigue me, right? Because I really am big on the maneuver aspect of any type of vehicle game, right? Whether it's a dogfighting game or a tank game or whatever. Airship games intrigue me because I feel like they have a lot of mechanics almost of like a naval game, right? Just of the way the ships sort of move, and positioning for shots is more like a naval game, right? Because you're not really going for these head-on shots or tailing solutions, whatnot. So airship games always kind of intrigue me, how the mechanics and the maneuvering balances those different tactics, I guess you would say, right? But I'm definitely curious to try it out. I hope I can get to fall in and see it, and the miniatures look really cool. I just hope I get a chance to check it out.
Great. I look forward to seeing you guys there.
Yeah, that'll be good. Well, anything else, Dan, that you want to throw out there to the listeners?
I think I'm good. I'm really happy. I'm excited about the game. I'm excited it's done, and already have other things in the works as future releases with these things, and it's become a passion project that has been going on for way too long.
Well, it's good to get closer to the finish line. I know when we were designing or developing Fulcrum Leader, getting across the finish line and getting things to the printer was enough of a drama, and so that's a good feeling to say, all right, I know where we are. So yes, hopefully you'll get your art finished up here soon, and then get that out to be edited and be printed. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. Obviously, hopefully it'll be at Fall In. But definitely thanks for joining us on the podcast. Thanks for hanging out and spending some time to tell us about the game.
Thanks
well,
a lot.
I will, as always, leave our listeners with the thought that, if you weren't at Historicon, if you didn't see me shamed into signing a Harrier on our fridge magnets, then you missed our new tagline. Steve, do you remember our new tagline? Oh, you've already forgotten.
Already,
you're the one that started
really
it.
Memorable.
Oh, well, so I'll just remind all of our listeners to fly hard and feel the thrust.